Have you ever discovered a secret so shocking that it changes everything you thought you knew about your family? Today, I'm going to tell you a story about betrayal, hidden compassion, and a choice that would leave everyone stunned. Stay with me, because the truth isn't always what it seems, and what happens next will keep you on the edge of your seat. It all began one seemingly ordinary evening, a night that held the quiet stillness of routine, yet beneath that calm, tension simmered. My daughter, Emily, had been acting differently for weeks. The changes were subtle at first. She lingered longer in her room, speaking less, glancing at her phone with a careful intensity, as though hiding something from the world, and from me. At first, I convinced myself it was normal teenage behavior. Teenagers go through phases, I told myself. But there was a nagging feeling, a whisper in my mind, that told me something deeper was unfolding. Mothers, after all, have instincts refined over years, and mine screamed that Emily was keeping a secret far bigger than mere adolescent whims. The first real clue came one night when I noticed a message pop up on her phone while she stepped away briefly. I wasn't snooping. It simply caught my eye. The message was brief, almost cryptic, and she immediately snatched her phone away, her hand shaking slightly. "It's nothing," she muttered, a practiced smile crossing her face, but her eyes betrayed her, a flicker of fear and urgency. I knew instinctively that it was not nothing. Something was happening, something she didn't want me to know. The maternal intuition that had guided me through countless childhood crises screamed at me now, louder than ever. Over the next several days, I became an observer in my own home. I watched patterns emerge in her behavior. Emily left the house frequently under vague pretenses. Sometimes I caught fragments of phone conversations, bits of dialogue about names I didn't recognize, discussions of money or places I'd never heard of, appointments that were mysteriously absent from our family calendar. It gnawed at me, this sense that a hidden world existed alongside our ordinary life, a secret she was safeguarding with meticulous care. One night, she returned home unusually late. I pretended to be asleep, straining to hear her voice. She whispered hurriedly into the phone, "I can't let her find out." "No, I didn't tell her. Yes, I'll handle it." The words sent a chill down my spine. Whatever this was, it was serious, significant, and personal. It wasn't a school project. It wasn't harmless mischief. My heart raced as a mix of fear and concern overwhelmed me. I realized that I was standing on the brink of discovering something that could change everything I believed about my family. The next morning, I tried to approach the situation casually, masking my anxiety. "Emily," I said lightly, "you've been out a lot. Everything okay?" She looked startled, hesitated, then forced a smile. "Yeah, Mom, just school stuff," she said, her eyes darting nervously toward her phone. But the tension in her posture betrayed her, confirming my suspicions. Emily was hiding something, and whatever it was, it involved more than just ordinary teenage concerns. As I pieced together the clues, the secretive phone calls, the sudden absences, the small lies, I felt a rising sense of urgency. This wasn't about punishment or discipline. This was about understanding, protecting, and preparing for a revelation that would leave everyone in shock. I knew that confronting her too soon might push her away, but remaining passive could mean missing the truth entirely. My mind raced through every possibility, every scenario, trying to predict the secret she held so carefully, fearing the emotional storm it might unleash. Little did I know that Emily's secret was more profound than I could have imagined. It involved her father, a man whose life I thought I knew, but who had hidden aspects that even I, after years of marriage, could never have guessed. The discovery would challenge everything I believed about loyalty, trust, and family. As I sat in my living room that night, heart pounding, I felt the weight of anticipation, not knowing that within days, the hidden truth would come to light, and our lives would be forever altered. The following morning, Emily seemed quieter than usual, almost withdrawn. Breakfast was tense, the clinking of silverware sounding louder than it should, as though the room itself was aware of the unspoken tension. I watched her closely, noting the way she avoided my gaze, how her fingers nervously traced the edge of the table, her spoon hovering midair before dropping with a soft clatter. Each small movement seemed loaded with significance, as if she were tiptoeing around a truth she feared would shatter our world. My maternal instinct screamed at me to act carefully, push too hard, and the delicate trust we still shared could crumble. Later that day, while Emily was out supposedly studying with friends, I found a folded note tucked beneath a stack of books in her bedroom. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, neat but hurried. The message was short, cryptic, yet it carried a weight that sent my pulse racing. I don't know how much longer I can keep this from her. I hope she understands when the time comes. My hands trembled as I held the paper, realizing that I was staring at a confession of sorts, a prelude to a revelation I could not yet fully comprehend. Fear, concern, and an odd mix of excitement collided inside me. I'd always known there would be moments when my child would surprise me, but this felt different. This felt like a turning point, the threshold of a secret powerful enough to redefine our family. Determined to understand, I began searching for subtle clues in Emily's behavior and surroundings. I noticed the small changes, the way her phone always seemed slightly tilted away from view, the way she texted in bursts, deleting messages almost immediately after sending them. Her journal, once a place of ordinary musings, now contained pages densely packed with notes, many coded in shorthand I didn't understand. Every discovery deepened the mystery, each clue a fragment of a story I had not yet been invited to witness in full. Days passed, each one revealing small hints that, when pieced together, formed a puzzle too complex to ignore. Emily had become increasingly evasive about her whereabouts, sometimes returning home late, disheveled, and tired. The conversations she engaged in over the phone were fragmented, often ending abruptly with a whispered apology or a hurried, "I have to go." I felt a mixture of frustration and urgency. How could a young adult carry such a burden in silence? And why was the secret so carefully guarded from me? One evening, I decided to follow her discreetly, staying a distance behind as she walked to a nondescript building in our neighborhood. My heart pounded as I watched her enter, and I remained hidden, unseen, listening to the soft murmur of voices inside. Through a window, I glimpsed her speaking with a woman I had never met, someone whose presence seemed to command respect or authority. They exchanged papers, whispered urgently, and Emily's face was pale, her hands shaking. This was no ordinary interaction. Something significant was unfolding, something she had chosen to navigate without my knowledge. But I could feel its importance, a silent gravity that demanded attention. As I retreated to my car and drove home, my mind raced through possible explanations. Was this related to school, a secret project, a hidden opportunity? Or was it something more personal, a situation involving trust, betrayal, or danger? The possibilities were endless, and fear coiled in my chest like a living thing. I realized I was now part of a story far larger than I had anticipated, one that would test my instincts, my patience, and my ability to support my daughter without overstepping the delicate boundaries she had drawn. That night, Emily returned home later than usual, tired, quiet, and seemingly anxious. I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. "Emily," I began softly, "I know something is happening, something you haven't shared with me yet. I just want you to know I'm here, whenever you're ready." She froze, her eyes wide, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. Then, slowly, she handed me another note. My hands shook as I unfolded it. The writing was hurried, almost frantic. "Tomorrow. You'll understand everything. Please trust me until then." A chill ran through me. tomorrow, everything. The anticipation was almost unbearable. I realized that in less than 24 hours, the hidden world Emily had been carefully guarding would collide with mine, bringing with it truths I could never have imagined. Every instinct, every heartbeat told me that what awaited us would change the trajectory of our lives, leaving a mark we could not erase and a lesson we would carry forever. The following morning arrived with a heavy, almost electric tension in the air. I could sense Emily moving about the house quietly, her footsteps light and deliberate, as if she were navigating a world I could not yet see. Breakfast was untouched. She barely looked at her plate, her eyes distant and thoughtful. The note from last night burned in my mind. Tomorrow, you'll understand everything. Please trust me until then. Trust. The word repeated in my thoughts like a mantra, yet I couldn't fully grasp what I was supposed to trust, or why she had chosen such a cryptic way to lead me toward revelation. Mid-morning, Emily finally approached me, her expression a mixture of determination and fear. "Mom," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need you to come with me today. It's important. And please, don't ask questions until I explain." Her tone was urgent, yet calm, and there was no room for debate. Something in her eyes made it clear that hesitation could not be afforded. I nodded silently, feeling a mix of apprehension and maternal curiosity. I had no choice but to follow. We left the house without exchanging a word, driving through familiar streets that now felt strange, as if the neighborhood itself were charged with secrets. Emily guided me toward a building I had passed countless times but never entered. A small, understated office complex with tinted windows. She parked in the lot and took my hand. Her grip was firm, insistent, and it grounded me in a way I hadn't expected. Together, we approached the entrance, and I realized that the next step would be the threshold of truth, a crossing from the ordinary into the extraordinary. Inside, the atmosphere was quieter than any office I had ever known. The hum of fluorescent lights mingled with the faint scent of paper and polished wood. Emily led me through a series of corridors, her pace deliberate but quick, until we reached a small room at the far end. She paused, turned to me, and spoke in a low voice. "Everything you're about to see is real. Please don't panic, just listen and try to understand." I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting with a combination of fear and anticipation. Whatever awaited us here would define the way I saw my daughter, and perhaps the entire family, forever. The door opened, and I stepped inside, my eyes immediately catching a series of photographs pinned meticulously to a bulletin board. They depicted Emily in various settings, some familiar, some completely foreign. There were pictures of her with people I didn't recognize, places I had never been, and even events that seemed impossible to reconcile with the life I knew she led. Her expression in each photo was composed, almost knowing, but her eyes betrayed an understanding that stretched far beyond her years. I realized that these images were not merely snapshots. They were evidence, carefully curated, of a hidden life that had remained invisible to me until now. Emily guided me to a desk where a folder lay open. Inside were letters, documents, and records that detailed years of secret effort, projects, volunteer work, legal filings, and interventions I had never imagined. Each page painted a picture of a young woman navigating a complex and challenging world, tackling problems far beyond the scope of her age. I felt a swell of pride, mixed with an almost painful realization that I had been blind to the magnitude of her actions, that her courage and initiative had quietly shaped a life I had only glimpsed in fragments. She paused, her hand hovering over the folder. "Mom, I've kept this hidden because I wasn't sure how you'd react, but now you need to know everything before tomorrow. The people in these letters, the situations in these photos, they're all connected. Everything is about to come together, and I need you to trust me completely." Her voice trembled slightly, yet there was an undeniable strength in her gaze. I nodded, the words I wanted to say lodged in my throat. My heart raced as I realized that the story of my daughter, and perhaps our entire family, was about to unfold in ways I could not yet predict. She began to explain, detailing intricate connections, struggles she had managed alone, and alliances she had formed quietly. Her narrative revealed a world of hidden obstacles, ethical dilemmas, and personal triumphs. With every revelation, my perspective shifted. I began to understand not only the depth of her courage, but the gravity of the events that had shaped her secret journey. It was no longer just Emily's story. It was a tale of resilience, wisdom, and the quiet power of determination, one that demanded both respect and awe. As the hours passed, I absorbed each detail, marveling at her resourcefulness and the sheer scope of what she had managed to accomplish. By the time the sun began to dip behind the horizon, casting a golden glow through the office windows, I realized that tomorrow would mark not only a revelation, but a transformation, an awakening to truths that had remained hidden far too long. And I knew, with certainty, that nothing would ever be the same again. The night fell quietly, yet I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every image, every document Emily had revealed. The weight of her secrets pressed on me, but so did a growing sense of admiration. How had she carried all of this alone, without asking for my guidance or recognition? The more I thought about it, the more I understood that her independence was both a shield and a testament to her strength. I tried to imagine the world from her perspective, navigating challenges I hadn't even known existed, and I felt a mix of guilt and pride. Morning came with a clarity that was almost surreal. Emily appeared at the kitchen doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the whirlwind of emotions I had been experiencing all night. She placed a cup before me, sitting opposite with a quiet confidence. "Today," she said softly, "everything begins to make sense. The connections, the choices, the hidden lives, it all leads to today. Are you ready?" I nodded, unsure if I was ready for the magnitude of what she was about to reveal, but the trust she demanded felt necessary. There was no turning back. We left the house together, the car engine a steady hum beneath our tense silence. Emily guided me through streets I knew well, but seemed unfamiliar now, each turn bringing us closer to an unknown destination. My curiosity mingled with apprehension, and I wondered how much more of her hidden life I was about to uncover. Finally, we arrived at a nondescript building, its exterior unremarkable, yet Emily's determination suggested this place held the answers to questions I hadn't even thought to ask. Inside, the air was thick with anticipation. Emily led me through corridors lined with framed photographs and certificates I had never seen. Each step we took seemed to pull back the veil further, revealing layers of her life that had been carefully concealed. The final room we entered was stark but organized, with a single table in the center, upon which lay files, photos, and personal letters. She gestured for me to sit and then opened a folder labeled Everything. My heart raced as I realized that at last I would see the full extent of her efforts, her challenges, and the choices she had made alone. Emily began to narrate her story, her voice steady but imbued with emotion. She spoke of people she had helped in secret, situations she had navigated without guidance, and sacrifices she had made to protect the family's reputation. Each revelation peeled back another layer of the carefully constructed facade she had maintained. I listened, sometimes in disbelief, at times in awe, as I understood the complexity of her actions and the magnitude of her courage. Her story was more than just personal. It was a testament to resilience, intelligence, and unwavering determination. At one point, she paused and looked at me directly. "Mom, there's something else. These letters, photos, and documents, they're not just about what I've done. They're about who we are as a family, the choices we make, and the secrets we keep. You need to understand this, or everything could be lost." Her words resonated deeply, striking a chord I had not anticipated. I realized that this moment was pivotal, not just for me, but for the future of our family. The implications of her hidden life extended far beyond her personal achievements. She handed me a letter, written in a precise hand, detailing interactions with relatives I had never met, conflicts resolved in secrecy, and decisions that had safeguarded our family's legacy. Each page revealed a layer of complexity, a web of connections that demanded careful navigation. The scale of her responsibility stunned me, but more than that, the clarity with which she had acted impressed me deeply. It became evident that her quiet efforts had shaped lives, prevented disasters, and created opportunities for growth and healing. As the day progressed, Emily guided me through more files, each revealing another chapter of her concealed existence. I began to grasp the enormity of what she had accomplished, the sacrifices she had made, and the wisdom she had accumulated. It was clear that this was not merely a personal journey. It was a carefully orchestrated series of choices designed to protect, heal, and uplift. Her insight into human behavior, her strategic decisions, and her courage in the face of potential backlash were nothing short of remarkable. The evening approached with a strange serenity, a calm that seemed almost unnatural after the intensity of the day. I followed Emily as she led me out of the building, her movements deliberate, every step purposeful. The streets were quiet now, the hustle of the city replaced by the subtle hum of distant traffic and the occasional bark of a dog. The air carried a hint of rain, cool and refreshing, as though nature itself acknowledged the weight of the revelations I had just absorbed. I struggled to maintain composure, knowing that the next phase of this journey would demand both focus and courage. We arrived at a small park tucked between two tall buildings. Emily stopped beneath an old oak tree, its branches reaching outward like protective arms. "This is where it all began," she said softly. Her eyes, reflecting both determination and vulnerability, met mine. I felt a pang of empathy. She had carried the burden of secrecy and responsibility alone. Yet she stood before me now, inviting me to understand, to witness, and to partake in the story that had shaped not just her life, but the entire family's trajectory. I nodded, silently bracing myself for what was to come. She handed me a folder containing personal journals, letters, and photographs. Each document was a fragment of a life lived in secrecy, a mosaic of choices, sacrifices, and hidden triumphs. Emily began to read aloud from the journals, her voice steady yet imbued with emotion. She recounted moments of conflict and reconciliation, of deception and revelation, and of victories quietly won against odds that seemed insurmountable. I listened intently, absorbing every detail, realizing that her narrative was far more intricate than anything I had previously imagined. One passage struck me with particular force. Emily had written about a confrontation with a family member who had attempted to manipulate the inheritance. Her words were precise, almost surgical, outlining not just the events, but the thought processes behind each decision she had made. She had foreseen consequences, anticipated reactions, and acted strategically, all while maintaining the outward appearance of compliance and neutrality. The sophistication and foresight she demonstrated left me in awe. It was clear that she had not only protected her own interests, but had safeguarded the family's legacy with an unparalleled level of intelligence and courage. As she continued, Emily recounted the emotional toll her choices had exacted. She described nights of sleeplessness, moments of despair, and the heavy weight of responsibility that had threatened to overwhelm her. Yet, intertwined with these hardships were victories, small, quiet, but profoundly meaningful. Each success, each act of protection or revelation, had been achieved without recognition or support, emphasizing the extraordinary resilience and determination that defined her character. I realized that I had underestimated the depth of her strength, and a deep respect and admiration began to grow within me. Emily paused, looking directly into my eyes. "You must understand," she said. "These stories, these decisions, They are not just about me. They are about you, about us, about the future we are responsible for shaping. Every secret, every choice, every hidden action carries consequences. And now you must decide how to move forward. Her words resonated deeply. I understood that the responsibility was no longer hers alone. I was now a part of this narrative, entrusted with knowledge and power that demanded careful consideration and action. We spent hours reviewing the documents, dissecting each decision, analyzing the motives and potential outcomes. Emily's analytical mind, paired with her emotional intelligence, created a framework that was both meticulous and compassionate. I realized that her ability to navigate these complex dynamics required not only intellect, but a profound understanding of human nature. The more I learned, the more I saw the pattern of strategy and foresight that had guided her life. It became evident that these skills were not innate. They were honed through experience, observation, and a commitment to justice and protection. By nightfall, we sat on a bench, surrounded by the quiet rustle of leaves and the distant glow of streetlights. The weight of the revelations, the depth of the secrets, and the enormity of the responsibility settled over me like a heavy cloak. I knew that the coming days would challenge me in ways I could not yet imagine. Yet, alongside the weight was a sense of empowerment, a clarity of purpose that had been absent before. Emily's story had illuminated paths, revealed truths, and prepared me for the choices that lay ahead. As I left the park, I felt a profound shift within myself. Emily had not only shared her story, she had entrusted me with it. And in that trust, I found both a burden and a gift. The next phase of our journey would demand courage, wisdom, and compassion. But for the first time, I felt equipped to navigate the complexities that awaited. I understood that every decision I made moving forward would carry the echoes of her sacrifices and the weight of the secrets she had so carefully protected. The night was still, but within me, a fire had been ignited, ready to guide me through the challenges and revelations yet to come. The following morning dawned with a muted, almost hesitant light, as if the world itself sensed the gravity of the events unfolding. I awoke with a lingering awareness of the revelations from the previous day, my mind replaying every word Emily had shared, every document we had examined. The weight of responsibility pressed upon me, a quiet but persistent reminder that the knowledge I now carried was not just a story. It was a blueprint for action, a roadmap to uncovering the truths that had been concealed for decades. I knew that the choices I would make in the coming hours could redefine everything. Emily arrived promptly, her expression calm yet intense, the determination in her eyes unmistakable. "Today," she said, "we take the next step. We move from understanding to action." Her words, though simple, carried immense weight. I nodded, feeling both anticipation and apprehension. I had come to trust her insight, but now the stakes had escalated. We would no longer be passive observers. We would become participants in the unfolding narrative, shaping outcomes that could alter lives, mend broken bonds, or expose long-hidden truths. We began by revisiting the most sensitive documents, letters that contained veiled threats, journals that outlined clandestine agreements, and photographs that captured moments of betrayal and secrecy. Emily's methodical approach was remarkable. She did not rush. She did not guess. Each detail was examined, cross-referenced, and interpreted with precision. As I followed her lead, I realized that her analytical skills were unparalleled, honed through years of necessity and vigilance. Every revelation brought clarity, yet also raised new questions, weaving a complex tapestry of human motives, fears, and desires. One particularly chilling letter caught my attention. It was unsigned, but the handwriting suggested someone with intimate knowledge of the family's most private dealings. The letter detailed actions that had caused deep rifts and lingering resentments, outlining schemes that were calculated, manipulative, and at times cruel. Emily's reaction was measured but firm. "This," she said, "explains much of the discord. It is both a warning and a guide. Understanding who authored this and why will be crucial to restoring balance." Her insight was a revelation in itself, demonstrating a rare ability to transform chaos into a strategy. As we pieced together the fragments of the past, I began to recognize patterns that had eluded the casual observer. Alliances, betrayals, and hidden loyalties emerged with startling clarity. Emily explained that human behavior, though often unpredictable, followed certain rhythms when examined closely. By identifying these rhythms, we could anticipate reactions, predict outcomes, and make informed decisions that maximize both justice and protection. I felt a sense of empowerment I had never experienced before, tempered by the sobering awareness of the stakes involved. The day unfolded in a series of intense sessions, each more revealing than the last. We constructed timelines, mapped relationships, and documented every significant event with painstaking care. Emily encouraged me to question assumptions, challenge interpretations, and consider multiple perspectives. Her guidance transformed my understanding from a superficial awareness to a profound comprehension of the intricate web of human dynamics that had governed the family for years. I realized that knowledge alone was insufficient. Wisdom required careful analysis, empathy, and foresight. By mid-afternoon, we reached a critical breakthrough. A sequence of events that had appeared disconnected was revealed to be part of a coordinated effort to manipulate family decisions, control inheritance, and maintain influence. The implications were staggering. Emily explained how this understanding allowed us to predict not just the next move, but several moves in advance. It was as if we had gained access to a hidden map of intentions, a tool that would enable us to navigate the treacherous terrain with confidence and precision. The emotional weight of our discoveries was profound. I found myself oscillating between admiration for Emily's resilience and a deep sense of responsibility for the revelations we now held. Each insight carried consequences, each decision a ripple effect that could transform relationships, uncover truths, and deliver justice, or provoke conflict. Yet despite the gravity of the task, there was a sense of purpose, a clarity of mission that imbued the day with energy and resolve. As evening fell, we prepared for the next phase, confronting the individuals responsible, exposing the hidden manipulations, and restoring balance to the fractured family structure. Emily's meticulous planning ensured that every action would be calculated, every statement deliberate, and every consequence anticipated. I felt a mix of anxiety and determination, aware that the path ahead would test courage, integrity, and ingenuity. But I also knew that with Emily's guidance, we were prepared to face whatever challenges arose, armed with knowledge, strategy, and an unwavering commitment to uncover the truth and protect those who mattered most. The night brought with it a heavy silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves outside the window. Inside, the room felt charged, as if the air itself carried the weight of the truths we were about to confront. Emily and I reviewed our plan one final time, ensuring that every detail had been considered, every potential obstacle anticipated. There was no room for error. What we were about to do could expose lies, reveal betrayals, and challenge deeply ingrained family dynamics. The gravity of our mission settled over me like a tangible presence. Before leaving, Emily reminded me of a principle she lived by. Timing is as critical as strategy. If you act too soon, people may resist or deny, she said. If you wait too long, the opportunity slips away. The key is to strike when the moment aligns with truth, emotion, and consequence. Her words resonated deeply, reminding me that the path to justice required not only courage, but patience, observation, and a careful reading of human behavior. Every interaction, every word, and every gesture mattered, The stakes were personal, but the strategy was universal. Our first confrontation was delicate. We approached the individual whose actions had caused the most disruption, armed not with anger, but with irrefutable evidence. Emily guided the conversation with calm precision, framing questions that revealed inconsistencies and exposing patterns that had previously gone unnoticed. The subject's initial defensiveness gradually gave way to unease, as the documents, photographs, and recorded conversations we presented left no room for denial. The tension was palpable, a quiet storm that built in intensity until silence became a verdict in itself. As the night progressed, we repeated this approach with others implicated in the long chain of manipulations. Each interaction was tailored, each response anticipated, and each outcome carefully documented. I realized that the process was not about vengeance, but restoration, restoring truth, accountability, and ultimately, the integrity of relationships that had been fractured by secrecy and deception. With Emily's guidance, I began to understand that exposing wrongdoing did not mean destroying people. It meant giving them a chance to confront their choices, learn from them, and perhaps choose differently in the future. Despite the seriousness of the work, moments of human vulnerability emerged, surprising in their rawness. Confessions, tears, and expressions of remorse surfaced, reminding me that even those who had caused pain were capable of reflection and change. Emily emphasized that these moments were as crucial as the evidence itself. They offered insight into motivations, regrets, and fears, allowing us to navigate the delicate balance between accountability and empathy. I felt a profound sense of responsibility, not merely to reveal truth, but to ensure that justice was tempered with understanding. One particularly intense confrontation involved an individual who had manipulated events to their advantage for years. They reacted with anger, denial, and ultimately a grudging acknowledgement. It was a turning point. I realized that our strategy's success did not lie solely in exposing facts, but in creating a space where truth could not be ignored, a space where consequences were inevitable, and where the opportunity for redemption existed. Emily's mentorship had transformed my approach from reactive to proactive, from fearful to empowered, and from confused to clear-eyed in purpose. As the hours wore on, we noticed subtle shifts in family dynamics. Old grudges began to surface in conversation. Long-held secrets were tentatively shared, and for the first time in years, genuine dialogue occurred. It was messy, uncomfortable, and at times painful, but it was real. The barriers that had separated understanding and reconciliation were slowly coming down, one conversation at a time. I understood now that truth, once revealed, could not be contained, and its ripple effect would extend far beyond our immediate control. By the early morning, exhaustion had set in, yet there was a sense of accomplishment, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that the path we had undertaken was yielding results. Emily reminded me that our work was not complete. There would be follow-up, reflection, and continued guidance needed, but the foundation had been laid. The hidden truths were now visible, the manipulations understood, and the family had the opportunity to make choices informed by knowledge rather than ignorance. Sitting in the quiet dawn, I reflected on how much I had learned. Courage was essential, but preparation and observation were equally critical. Strategy was indispensable, but empathy ensured that the revelations we delivered would foster understanding rather than destruction. And most importantly, I realized that the pursuit of truth was not a linear path. It was complex, fraught with emotion, and full of unexpected twists that demanded resilience, patience, and unwavering focus. The sun had barely risen, casting a pale glow across the family estate. The night's revelations lingered in the air, a quiet weight of consequences, reflection, and possibility. There was no celebrating, no triumphalism, only the sober acknowledgement that the truth once uncovered altered everything. Emily and I sat in the study, reviewing the outcomes, making notes of reactions, and planning the careful follow-up that would ensure the changes we had set in motion were sustainable. The process had been exhausting, emotionally taxing, but undeniably transformative. In the wake of the confrontations, we observed the subtle ways in which dynamics began to shift. Relationships that had been fractured by deception now showed signs of tentative rebuilding. People who had been closed off, defensive, or hostile were gradually opening to dialogue, cautiously exploring the possibility of understanding. I realized that uncovering the truth was only the first step. How people chose to respond would determine the ultimate outcome. And yet, even resistance had its place. It forced reflection, accountability, and an internal reckoning that could not be ignored. One encounter stood out vividly in my memory. A relative who had long refused to engage in honest conversation approached me quietly, eyes filled with a mix of shame and gratitude. They admitted to mistakes, acknowledged hurt they had caused, and even expressed a tentative desire to change. It was not a resolution, nor was it a closure, but it was progress, the kind of progress that required patience, empathy, and a willingness to accept imperfection. Emily reminded me that change rarely occurred overnight. It was a slow, iterative process, and any step toward awareness or accountability was a step forward. Throughout the morning, I reflected on my own transformation. Before this journey, I'd approached these conflicts with fear, anger, and a sense of helplessness. But now, I felt empowered, clear-minded, and guided by a principle far greater than personal vendetta: the pursuit of integrity, fairness, and the restoration of fractured relationships. Emily had taught me that courage was not simply the absence of fear, but the deliberate choice to act despite fear, armed with preparation, insight, and clarity of purpose. The final step involved documenting the entire process. I prepared a comprehensive summary of interactions, evidence, and responses, ensuring that the truth we uncovered would be preserved and could be referenced if challenges arose. Emily emphasized that transparency, when paired with discretion, was the ultimate tool for long-term change. The written record became not just a tool for accountability, but also a symbol of what could be achieved when one faced difficulties with intelligence, composure, and moral clarity. Later that day, I held a family meeting, carefully structured to allow each person to speak without interruption. The atmosphere was tense, yet purposeful. One by one, truths were acknowledged, misunderstandings clarified, and responsibilities accepted. Emotions ran high: tears, anger, guilt, and relief intermingled. But each revelation strengthened the possibility of reconciliation. I realized that honesty, even when painful, created a foundation for genuine connection, a bridge between past harm and future understanding. As evening approached, the family had begun tentative conversations about rebuilding trust. Though scars remained, there was now a shared understanding that deception could no longer govern our interactions. Emily reminded me that transformation was ongoing. The seeds we had planted would take time to grow, but growth was inevitable when nourished with commitment, communication, and respect. I felt a sense of profound responsibility and hope, knowing that the work we had undertaken could have lasting effects far beyond the immediate outcomes. Before leaving, Emily shared one final lesson. The path of truth is not easy, but it is the only way to real freedom. People may resist, relationships may fracture further, but the clarity you gain cannot be taken from you. Keep guiding, keep observing, and always choose integrity over convenience. That is how change endures. Her words lingered, a mantra that would carry me forward in every future challenge. As I walked away from the house that had been both a battlefield and a classroom, I understood that this experience had reshaped me completely. I was no longer merely a participant in family drama. I had become a strategist, a mediator, and a guardian of truth. And though the journey ahead would still contain obstacles, I now had the knowledge, courage, and foresight to navigate it with grace. The story that began with hidden secrets, betrayal, and manipulation had concluded with understanding, empowerment, and the promise of transformation, a testament to the power of truth when faced with courage, strategy, and an unwavering commitment to justice.